Hello and welcome to this tutorial on camera animation techniques in Blender. So in this tutorial we will learn two different ways to animate the camera in your movies. First of all, we'll do a simple camera fly around animation of the default cube. So select the camera and split the 3D view screen into two parts, one at the top and one at the bottom. Switch the top window to camera view by pressing 0 on the numpad, and switch the bottom window to top view ortho by pressing 7 followed by 5. Make sure the camera can see the cube in camera view. If not, you can adjust the camera position by using G to move or to rotate on the X, Y, or Z axis, making sure that the camera is selected first. You can also use the widget arrows to drag the camera's position. If you're working with the default settings, then the camera will be in the bottom right corner in top view. Once the camera is in position, press I to insert a keyframe and choose Lock Rot for location and rotation. We don't need to animate the scale right now. So move the playhead to frame 25, and in top view, move the camera to the top right corner and rotate it so that it's pointing at the cube from its new position by pressing G and R. Press I to insert a new keyframe in frame 25, and again choose Lock Rot from the menu. Move the playhead to frame 50 and move the camera to the top left corner this time. Rotate again so that you can see the cube in camera view. Insert a keyframe by pressing I and choosing Lock Rot. Repeat this process for the bottom left corner in frame 75. And for frame 100, we're going to do something a little bit different. We want the camera to return to the same position as it is in frame 1 so that we can create a loop so the camera will keep rotating around the cube to infinity. So split the timeline window into two windows and make the top one into a dope sheet. Right-click on the keyframes in frame 1 to select them, and then press Shift-D to duplicate the keyframe and drag it to frame 100. In top view, press N to open the right properties panel. Under Transform, Rotation, look for the Z value. Add 360 to whatever Z value you have there. So for example, it might be 41 plus 360, and then type in the new value in the box. Press I to insert a new keyframe and choose Lock Rot to update the Z value. Every time you make a change to one of your keyframes, you need to update that value by pressing I and inserting a keyframe again. Otherwise, it'll just automatically revert back to the previous value. Change the end value to 100 and press play to see your animation. To make the camera pause for a moment at each corner, we need to add some extra keyframes. So in the dope sheet, select the keyframes in frame 25 by right-clicking them. Press Shift-D to duplicate the keyframe and move it to frame 30. Repeat this to duplicate frame 50 and move it to 55. Copy frame 75 to 80 and frame 100 to 105. Now our animation lasts for 105 frames, so we need to change the end value to reflect this. So change it to 105 as well, so we don't lose the last 5 frames. Press play to see the difference in the animation now. It stops for a moment at each corner, which gives us time to take in what we're seeing. The problem now is that the pauses look very stiff and rigid. To make them flow more smoothly, we need to add a little bit of motion to them. Select frame 25 and rotate the camera very slightly by 1 degree. Press I to insert a keyframe and choose Lock Rot to update the keyframe values. Do the same in frame 50, 75, and 100. So select the camera and in the Properties panel, add 1 degree to the Z rotation value. Move frame 30 to 35, frame 55 to 60, frame 80 to 85, and frame 105 to 110 to leave a larger gap of 10 frames for the pauses, just so that we can stay a little bit longer on those pauses and see the slight animation happening over a longer time. Update the end value to 110 and play your movie. So now we have a nice smooth animation of the camera flying 360 degrees around an object. The next technique that we look at is animating the camera in fly mode. Open a new file by pressing Ctrl N or choosing Load Factory Settings from the File menu. Delete the default cube and add a cylinder and lay it flat on the ground. Stretch it out on the x-axis so that you end up with a long tube. Duplicate the cylinder and make it smaller so that the second cylinder goes right through the first cylinder. Select the first cylinder again and add a Boolean modifier to it. Choose Difference and under Object, select the second cylinder. Click Apply and delete the second cylinder and you should end up with a hole going right through the first one. Add a torus some ways behind the cylinder and duplicate and add 4 more of these, rotating each one slightly to create a bend made out of rings. Finally, we're going to add a monkey head sitting on top of a cube behind the last torus. So now we've created a simple camera obstacle course. In top view, select your camera and reposition it so that it's facing the cylinder entrance. You might need to switch between views to do this. So in camera view, you should be able to see the cylinder entrance and be able to see through it. Make sure you're in camera view by pressing 0 on the number pad and press I to insert a keyframe and choose Lock Rut Scale. Move the playhead to frame 50 and press Shift F to enter fly mode and navigate the camera like an airplane through the cylinder. Once you reach the other side, press the left mouse button to stop moving. Press I again to insert another keyframe and choose Lock Rut Scale. Move the playhead to frame 75. Press Shift and F again to enter fly mode and navigate through the rings one by one. Each time you get through one of the rings, insert a keyframe, move the playhead, and go again, and just repeat this process. The camera can be difficult to control at first as the responsiveness to the mouse is quite sensitive. But if you take your time with it and don't make any sudden movements with the mouse, you should be able to control it with a certain degree of skill after a while. It's like playing a computer game, it just takes a while to learn how the controls work and how to do it properly. So finally, move the camera in fly mode to get a good view of the monkey head. So our last shot of the animation will be looking at the monkey head on top of the cube. You should end up with keyframes in frame 100, 125, 150, 175, and frame 200. The basic controls work as follows. To move forward and back, scroll the middle mouse wheel forwards and backwards, respectively. The more you scroll, the faster the camera moves. To rotate the camera left and right, that is to pan, move the mouse left and right. To rotate the camera up and down, that is to tilt, move the mouse up and down. And finally, to move the camera itself left and right or up and down, that is to dolly or to do a tracking or a crane shot, then hold down the middle mouse wheel and move the mouse left, right, up or down. So it's quite important that you have a mouse with a roller wheel that can act as a third button in order to properly control the camera in fly mode. So change your end frame to 200 and play the movie to see the effect. Feel free to add materials and textures to the objects and to light and render the animation appropriately. Um, and you should end up with a nice fly-through animation of our camera obstacle course. So in this tutorial, we've learned two different ways to animate the camera in Blender. First, by moving and rotating the camera in ortho view, and second, by animating live in fly mode.